appreciate you guys coming in today. I brought you guys in because I wanted to talk about communication of our school vision and mission, and one of those missions is to involve parents more. How do we create to where we're able to get our successes out to parents more, and not just always about athletics? It could be about academics, it could be about things that's happening within our school, new cameras up, things like that. So these are all the things that I want to talk about today. Feel free to join in at any time. If you've got suggestions, what I've done is, this is not necessarily a PowerPoint presentation. I'm just going to kind of go over our agenda. So, first of all, what are some of the celebrations we want to be known in our school? What methods are we communicating already with our community? How can we improve these forms of communication? How does this align with our school vision? And like I said, I've already talked about our school vision is we need to get more parent involvement. That's one of the major things as a system, not only as a school, but as a system we're trying to do. And how do we involve and include parents to our school's overall mission? So that's just kind of our agenda, what we'll be working with today. And like I said, this is not necessarily me giving a PowerPoint presentation. This is more of us collectively working together to come up with maybe some examples and things that you know has worked in your classrooms. As the technology person, things that's worked, as special ed teachers and as coaches, what things we've used. All right, go on to the next one. All right. These are just some things that I've thought. Celebrations to be known, test scores. Test scores are a major thing. First of all, why is it so hard to find our test scores in the system? Athletic teams, not just football or basketball, but all the programs, cross country, what are they doing? It's nice to know and get that on announcements, but how do the parents understand what we're doing? Peer programs and any kind of fundraising activities we're doing. So I'm going to stop that right quick and ask, what are some things you do to get out? We had a cross country meet the other day, and how it did.
We have a cross country Facebook group that we try to get all that stuff out there. And then I also just send parents text reminders about things to get information there. But as far as the general public, I usually go Facebook. It's easy, lots of people have access to that.
Now, are we using a school-wide Facebook, or are you just putting it on your normal Facebook account?
Well, we have a school or a cross-country group that I usually put it into, but then a lot of times I'll put it on my personal one too. We do have kind of a school one. I'm not even 100% sure who manages that.
Mr. Thrasher will share a lot of things too from his personal page.
All right, so as far as, could we improve that? Like, is it just one person that operates this Facebook page that Mr. Thrasher has? Is he the only one with access to it? And how do we get information to Mr. Thrasher? I think a Facebook page, and that's what I've heard about from a lot of parents. They get some things from the Facebook page, but not other things. Like, they understand when we win or lose a football game or something like that, but any kind of information like, okay, PTO meetings tonight. How are we getting that information out and making sure they're all parents? And then what about those parents that don't have Facebook? So those are just some of the things I want to talk about. These are some other methods of communication that I've either used before, I've seen teachers use in the classroom, or I've been at other school systems and I've seen them use. Remind 101 is a good one. Remind 101, when we're talking about getting text out there, like, I know a lot of teachers don't feel comfortable to where they can text back and forth with the parents, or say a student can text back and forth with them. They would love to get information out, but they don't necessarily want the bombardment of questions. So Remind 101 is a great way to get information out to a parent without having to get text or anything back. I know a lot of teachers use this in the classroom to get their test scores, or Miss Kathy used it to remind parents that her test is tomorrow. And she can just shoot that out.
Remind 101 message about my child's robotics meeting yesterday.
Yes.
So it is being used.
It's Remind 101's being used. Schoolcast. And I was hoping that you guys could help me with Schoolcast. I know I get Schoolcast from schools out. Sometimes I've got a Schoolcast about a football game, the Pee Wee game being played. Could we not use that for, okay, ACT test is tomorrow. Parents, be reminded to bring your students early. Breakfast will be served. Could we not start using Schoolcast more
for things like that?
We can, and I think Mr. Thresher has used it more than past principals have. He does use it to send out, you know, like the animal show or things like that, that before we just relied on paper notices going home, which we do still send, cause sometimes that's the best route. But he has used it more, but I know he has access to that, Ms. Davis has access to send those out, I have access to send out schoolcasts, so anytime someone comes and says, hey, can you put this out there, we usually do.
So teachers would have to come to basically like the administrators of that school cast to get anything.
Yes, but it's harder, it's more if it's gonna be a school-wide message. It would be very hard to group, you know, just do a certain class or a group of kids, cause I'm sure it's possible, but the way it's set up right now, everybody in the school is in one big group.
Yes.
And then you've mentioned the school Facebook page, and
I'm assuming that's ran by Mr. Thrasher only, and we just get information to him.
I don't think he
essentially.
runs the one that, there's like a PTO one, and I'm not sure who does that, but he just usually posts through his personal page, and he just sort of shares all the ones that come.
Well, how would you guys feel about creating a school-wide Facebook page for information and things to get out? And that way, you know, like I said, with today's times, you might not want students being your personal friends on your own personal Facebook page.
We talked about that a few years ago, and that was with the prior, technology administrator, and they discouraged us from doing that then, but that might be different now that it's been this long.
And that might be something we wanna look into now, what we can do.
I think text would be one of the better, avenues, because everybody texts.
Remind
At
one
that
on one.
account. And it's kind of funny, but even I find myself not listening to the messages, but I'll read the text. I don't know why.
And like for baseball, I've got a remind set up for the junior high team, a remind set up for the varsity team, I've got one set up for all the players, and I've got another one set up for everybody that's associated with it. So that way I can kind of selectively send out per group, or I could go through and just select all groups to send something out.
And I'm thinking maybe Remind right now is maybe our best option to reach more people, especially like Mr. Ducard just said, people who are not gonna listen to that school cast. I've seen people, as soon as they get a school cast and they realize that's what it is, they just hang right up, they don't even listen to the message. What about a Google Classroom for parents? And we have Google Classroom in our school, and the students have their own Google Classroom page, and that's for testing and things like that. We can put anything we want to on that. But do parents have access? I know we have a parent portal. Could we have like a Google Classroom for those parents that do like to use the internet and do like to use Chromebooks and things like that, and send out information that way? Like Coach Rice, test scores, grade in science. How many of your parents know that though, Coach?
Not many use parent portal as it is.
Yeah. So how do we get that information out? So when parents come to school and be like, I wanna know what's going on in science class. What are they learning? What should my students be learning? A lot of parents don't know, you know, we have pretty good test scores in science and things like that. So how do we get this information out? And maybe parent portal's not one, every parent has parent portal, is that correct? They have access to it.
Yes.
But do they know? I've gotten several calls over the last few weeks of parents just asking me, how do they even get into the parent portal? And I know we give that out maybe at the start of the year, and they're just signing papers, and they probably don't even realize what they're signing, but we generally try to give out their own password, their own passcodes and things, so they can get in, but they never keep up
Well,
with that stuff.
and that's something too that we send home paper only, as far as I know. So if a kid doesn't want their parents to be able to see their grades,
It doesn't, it gets lost.
it gets lost before it gets home.
and align it to the school vision. All right, one of the major things I want to do is more parent involvement.
And PTO involvement. How do we get more PTO involvement? How do we get more kids out of that? Or more parents involved in PTO?
We're gonna have to do more elementary stuff. We're gonna have to, what does elementary do? Parents involved, so,
One
When
thing-
they do a program, the parents show up, if their kid's up there performing, so that usually draws them in.
And another thing I wanna look at is bringing in our PTO representatives. I know we got 2 new ones, and and I wanna talk to them and see what they're doing. I know they did a dance the other day and things like that to get more parent involvement.
These are some of the things I wanna look at. So that's how we're gonna get parent inclusion.
So these are some of the things that I wanna work on towards, and